Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Uri for Gorilla Poker, coming at you with another beautiful hand courtesy of our YouTube viewer who recommended a bunch of hands for me to review. So thank you again for that. Let's get to it. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. So this hand is played on, I think, Poker Stars 5100. Saul Costa from MP raises to $200. Actually a min raise. This is not a raise size you will see very often these days. It's known to be suboptimal, but in my course, Elite Cash Game Exploits, which you guys can find on Upswing, I explain why sometimes it's actually a very good size and potentially, Saul thought it was in this situation. So, Dokuruku calls from the cutoff. This is the recreational at the table. Nacho squeezes from the small blind and everyone calls. We're three-way to a flop of ace-4 deuce rainbow. And of course we want to think a bit about the ranges. So Nacho, in order to squeeze, the important thing for you guys to remember about squeezing ranges is that they are fairly depolarized. So they are kind of top-heavy. Aces through nines, suited broadways, good suited aces, but not so many hands like 8-9 suited, ace-10 off. You're more top-end heavy. Calling ranges. So for Saul Costa, he's probably not going to have the top end of his range, which would 4-bet, and he's going to be missing some of the bottom end of his range because it doesn't do too well multi-way with another player behind him. So hands like 5-6 suited, where imagine he calls and then the guy after him calls with 6-7 suited or ace-5 suited or whatever. So he has to kind of drop the bottom of his range in that sense, but can continue the better hands. And then Dokuruku, where, he called this. So we expect, a bunch of suited stuff, a bunch of pocket pairs. So ace-4 deuce rainbow. And here we want to analyze this flop given the context of what I just said. So the deuce and the 4 end up being a bit bricky for Saul Costa's range. In theory, he should be folding deuces and 4s fairly often. I'm not sure if he is actually doing that. He might still be calling them. So this board is more bricky than a normal ace-deuce-4 board would be. Nacho bets small, indicating, he probably thinks he can get away with betting very wide here, which I would tend to agree with. I might go even smaller than this though. Saul Costa folds and Dokuruku calls. We then have the Queen of Diamonds turn. Nacho checks. Dokuruku bets 40% pot. Nacho calls. Here, if we're thinking about hands, what would we expect Dokuruku to bluff with? The way to think about this spot is that you have to start with, Nacho bet a lot and the queen turned. So Nacho could have something like kings, jacks, 10s, and you could have a queen, and all of those hands would likely check the turn. And similarly, he could have a weak ace, could have some give-ups. So when you're Dokuruku, anything you have that loses to 10s is a potential bluff, more or less. I don't know if the threshold is losing to jacks, losing to 10s, losing to 9s, but anything you have that's losing to those hands. And then the natural hands to go with would be pocket 3s, pocket 5s, and 4-5 suited. And those would be the hands I would expect to see bluffed the most often in this situation. So if you're kind of counting, and imagine Dokuruku is a recreational player, so he might have all of these combos in full, that would be 6 pocket 3s combos, 6 pocket 5s combos, and 3 4-5 suited combos for a total of 15 bluffing potential combos. Okay, if he's aggressive. So Nacho checks, Dokuruku bets, and Nacho calls. River 4 of hearts. And now that we're focused on the ranges, we see that this is actually not an irrelevant card because 4-5 suited improved to trips. So 4 there are less pocket 4s and less ace 4s in Dokuruku's range on the one hand. On the other hand, if he has 4-5 suited or 4-3 suited, which some recreationals would end up here with, those hands actually improve. So Nacho checks, Dokuruku goes all in, and Nacho calls. And before we look at the showdown, let's imagine Nacho has some bluff catcher, and we'll try to do a short Equilab exercise to see whether or not we like the bluff catch. Let's say he has Queen Jack suited. And now we want to put in the bluffing range for Dokuruku and a value range. So ace-4 deuce, of course you can have ace-4 and ace-deuce, and you can have ace-queen. Next we have deuces and 4s, this would be the value range, and 4-5 suited, and maybe 6-4, maybe 4-3, I don't know. And then the bluffing range would be 3s and 5s. How are you doing with queen-jack suited here? Well, you need, because this is like a 75% pot-sized bet, you need to win, I don't know the exact number, like 30% of the time or so, 28% of the time. And when we look here, you can see we have 45% equity, insane amount, if Dokuruku is bluffing full frequency 3s and 5s. And that's all you really, and you know, not showing up with ace-king, not value betting ace-jack. Like, you could make this worse if you think he goes ace-jack, ace-10. But the thing is, on this river, you know, kickers don't play. I don't know if those are too likely, but let's, you know, for the exercise sake, we'll add these in. And you see it's still 37%, so still printing with queens, with queen-jack suited, and something like pocket jacks would still be winning, even in this case. So, on the surface, if we expect Dokuruku to be aggressive, this is a really good spot. The issue here is, who knows how many 3s and 5s Dokuruku stabs on a turn, and how many he follows through on the river. Some guys would be like, okay, I have a pair, let's check down. They don't think too deeply about the spot, you know, pair checks down and that's it. And then we're looking at, how can I say this lightly, 0%. Some guys on the other end of the spectrum might be a lot more aggressive and maybe even show up here with wider hands. So, all that being said, let's take a look at the showdown. Nacho ends up calling with pocket 8s, so he apparently thinks Dokuruku is super wide here. And Dokuruku shows down pocket 9s. So, kind of a funky hand to wrap your head around, because Nacho got completely owned, right? He bluff caught with a hand that lost to a bluff, on the one hand. On the other hand, if Dokuruku has 9s, he has 3s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s probably. And now put in 8s, and you have an easy call. Even with the ace-jack, ace-10 in there, even with pocket 10s in there, 8s is a winning call. So, this hand, you know, on the one hand, you look at this and you might be, what the hell? Like, what the actual hell is going on here? This hand is crazy. But it's actually, you know, Nacho trying to adjust to a very, very aggressive player. And making what's probably a very good adjustment given the showdown. Like, if I had to judge this showdown, I would say, you know, good job, Nacho. You did good. And your call's probably printing a decent amount. And yeah, well played. Even though, you know, you just lost $10,000. Thanks again for recommending this hand. A really cool one to review. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.